So, as a story, when we're young and we see the turmoil everywhere, you see the pain, you see the suffering, you see that something's kind of off. People don't seem very free. They're not really expressing how they actually feel. Something feels off. And then sometimes you feel like there's not really space for me to be me, to freely express how I feel. I don't feel like that's really allowed. Or perhaps I do express and I'm shown that I'm a burden or it's too much. Not now. You know, there are a lot of different ways that we can sort of learn that expressing how we truly feel right now in this moment is not okay. Like, that's how it feels. So we suppress things. We learn to cope. We learn to move on. Hold it in and move on. And it's so innocent because we don't know any better, you know? We're not really encouraged and taught that it's okay to express how you feel right now. It's okay. Like, the whole full spectrum of human emotions are okay. It's okay to feel grumpy at times, frustrated, annoyed, lonely, scared, sad, happy, joyful, excited. It's okay. And I'm not giving parent advice because obviously, you know, day to day stress happens and sometimes you can't fully be there for all of that, you know? So in a way, I can also say that as long as you're born, you will be traumatized. There is no perfect parent out there. There is no perfect environment. But I guess I'm just explaining how that tendency to not be okay with showing your emotions is so deeply rooted, and it could be ingrained in your system, you know? You could call it your nervous system trying to protect you, and that's how it learned to protect you. So that's how it thinks it's protecting you. But without the intellect or knowing of it, it just unconsciously is programmed that way. So that's why it feels really difficult sometimes to just purely be honest with what's right here. And then there are all these excuses, or not excuses, just thoughts of judgment, or judgment of why this is bad, why you need to suppress again. This, you know, what other people are going to think of you. You can't show this. This is not okay. This is not acceptable. You won't be loved. You'll be rejected again. People will think I'm a failure if I show this. If I show how much I'm suffering. But you know, during this time, when I don't know what else to call it, but when the sense of self seems like it's really going, the suffering can feel really, really intense because the suppressed anger is coming up like a volcano. The suppressed sadness is coming up like a volcano. And it's really understandable, but it's very uncomfortable, and it will trigger all of your conditioning, all of your ways of judging yourself. All the ways that society is judging you, which is just a self, a big self, many selves, which are illusory. You're not there. You're not there to bear that burden. That was never yours to carry. So yes, it could feel more explosive than ever before, and it could be confusing and alarming because I thought this was supposed to make me more peaceful and joyful, more at ease. Isn't that what they told me? But no, what's revealed to you is the fullness of being a human, because it was denied before. When seeking is there, we're desperate to be happy. We're desperate to be at peace. We're desperate to look okay, to look and appear successful, to hide what's simply here. And so you could see how sadness, anger, grief, like all the so-called negative emotions would be suppressed a little bit here and there, over and over and over. And that's why it can feel like a volcano is erupting. And for those that are used to suppressing, used to holding in the pain, used to not rocking the boat, used to feeling like I can't inflict this pain on another, as if you're responsible for how other people feel, how other people think. Because there's a belief in the illusion that you're responsible for how you feel, how you think. But when all of that starts to dissolve, and it's obvious that there's no control in the thoughts, no control in the feelings, and you can see more clearly that this isn't actually my sadness. Sure, there is a very convincing and familiar story wrapped around it, and I'm not saying not to honor it, but really it's not your pain. Everyone feels similarly. They might just not be aware of it. It just might be more unconscious for them or locked in. So one of the hardest parts for me was expressing to my loved ones how much suffering there actually was here. And kind of sensing that they won't get it. Like they won't get why I'm suffering so deeply right now, because it'll just be seen as an exaggeration, you know? They'll have their own conditioning of like, get over it, or like, what's the big deal, or why is this coming up now? And I guess a part of it is like, it's okay. It's like, it's understandable that they would have their own ideas of what's okay and not okay. And the more you can explain in a way that feels good for you, perhaps you can say like, I'm just going through a really especially difficult time. Can you just hear me out and not try to fix me or heal me? Can you just listen, please? Or you could say, I'm really not trying to blame you or hurt you, but I just need to speak my truth right now, and it's been suppressed for so long. Maybe it's come up here and there, but I haven't exposed the full truth, and I just need to say it. And I'm sorry if it hurts you, but I have to stop feeling sorry for just speaking my truth. Because really, my truth might hurt you. And for here, there was more of an okayness with that because, oh, the suffering was so deep. What was being revealed to me, the depth of suffering, the depth of insanity of the mind that is everywhere, that is pretty much in all humans, but sometimes it's just not as obvious until you go through this. Because you see, it's just more bare naked. You can't really be convinced anymore that that thing will be the answer. And so the seeking energy that has momentum is just there. Oh, and it's intense. And the mind is running, attacking you, attacking others, trying to desperately find an answer. And you just see the insanity of it. You see that that was actually what was underneath the self. This image of myself that I was trying to portray to the world, to myself, trying to find safety in that, trying to find meaning, trying to find safety, security, okayness, happiness. But here you purely see it for what it is, and it's insane. I would say only a few really see how insane the mind is and really, really recognize that it's not in your control. There's nothing you can do about it. So that's when you almost can't help but be honest. That's when what you hoped you never needed to say to your loved ones, you have no choice but to say. It's just too much to bear. The suffering is too much to bear. And obviously this isn't going to be the same for everyone. I just think that when, like for the story here, there was so much suppression, like overly suppressing and overly attempting to deal with things on my own all the time. And it got better later on, but it was still pretty suppressed. But I do feel like a lot of us are like that. And then that's how we get detached from the body and we live more from the mind. We believe the mind. And if I'm being honest, there is no answer in the mind. There is no true satisfaction in the mind. So this is also where I realized, like, oh shit, people just don't know. They just didn't know how much I was suffering. What the narrative was here that was going on over and over and over and over in a loop, you know, about different people, but it was the same person basically, to a large degree. And that can be misconstrued from the perspective of the mind, but I think when separation just vanishes, it's obvious that actually everything is a very similar loop that's going on. So I just simply realized, like, people don't know, and you have to just explain to them, maybe even in just really basic, simple terms, what's going on for you. And like, we have so many shields up that we can't even admit weakness, what we view as weakness. But there is no such thing as real weakness or strength. Like, the mind can't distinguish that way. I would say it's just more about being honest about what's purely here, and understanding that there may have been a trying to run away from it and ways of denying yourself or thinking that this was the right way, to just suppress it, deal with it later, or it's not a big deal, I'll heal from it, it'll go away on its own. You'll be surprised at how common those thoughts are. And you know, it can affect us for a long time. It can just perpetuate the suffering. And like, for me, it took a while to be really honest with the one person I just really didn't want to be honest with. And my mind was making so many excuses that this person wouldn't understand no matter what. Like, they're just bad, they're just narcissistic, they're just oblivious, they're just, how could they not know? And I'm not making fun of myself, but that's how it was. That's how convincing it was, that no matter what, this person will not understand. And I guess I had good reason, because there were moments where I attempted to be honest about how hurtful, you know, certain things were that they said to me, like how hurtful it was. But yeah, sometimes I would just get there might be some niceness, and then later on it'll just turn around and say something that would really hurt me, you know, just unnecessary meanness. But you know, it's just more obvious that when someone is closed, not in the body, like their heart is really, really closed, it's kind of just understandable that they like wouldn't get it. It's just way too much conditioning around, like, you should be like this, you're causing me suffering by being like this. There could just be ideas. Ideas about how you should be. Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable. Like, I don't see a problem with it anymore, but it's pretty unbelievable how much conditioning there actually is. How much of it actually can dissolve and collapse, deconstruct, seen to be false, seen to be made up, seen to be passed down information from another self, from another sense that innocently, arrogantly thought it knew. But it didn't. It's just all made up. It's amazing how massively conditioned we all are. You wouldn't imagine. You can't even imagine how thorough it actually is. Until there's just the going through all of the layers. All of it. Like, damn. I didn't know how far this could go. I didn't know how empty this could get. I didn't know how free this could be. Definitely the most suffering I've ever felt, the greatest heartbreak of my life, was losing everything I thought I knew, was losing everything familiar to me, everything I've held dear for safety, that I thought was love, I thought was true love. So you lose everything and you're left bare. There was a period of real bleakness where there was just nothing. And it wasn't like, it didn't feel like fullness yet. It didn't feel like everything. It didn't feel like, oh shit, wow, this is actual love. That purely just is. It always just is. It's not a feeling, not a state, not a thing, not a happening, it's not anything. It just is. And then so when that comes in, when the fullness comes in, which you can't know, you can't predict, it's not even like I was waiting for it, because there was no energy that cared anymore. There was no energy that needed to know anymore. But when it slowly, very, very slowly came, it just filled the body. And then there was no edge. There was completely no inside, no outside, no boundary whatsoever. The body completely disappears because it never existed. I never existed. My whole story never happened. So there are so many seeming stages, you know? And I like talking about that. Even though it's imagination, even though it's still part of the story, even though it's still... I don't care. It's still beautiful. It's still equally this. There's no distinction, no separation.